So I'm gonna go over sort of the structure of society as it really is, and what's planned for the future. So at the top, or the center, whatever you want to call it, in the world is sort of like the Illuminati, the private individuals, deep state sort of stuff, where it's very hard to see. We know it's there. We know they have advanced sciences, at least 70 years ahead, but we don't really know what's really true, what's really not. Like people can say stuff like, oh, it's aliens or Anunnaki or whatever else, and like, how would you know? How would you know if the Rockefellers aren't actually aliens or shapeshifters or something? You never see them. You never get to examine them. I don't know where they are. So these are like, probably like Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Carnegies, Habsburgs, old money, powerful individuals, maybe a few people who are relatively new, who are probably very, very smart and capable. But definitely there's like a family sort of thing going on, where it's like, this person's part of the family, you are not. Big eugenics component. They believe in their genes. And if certain rumors are right, it probably is true, because they do this like sort of like discipline stuff and this like sort of stuff to their children, which most people would just consider just abuse, just straight up abuse. It's taking their children and abusing them to the point that most children would die, but these guys end up with like multiple personality disorders or whatever, and have this like ultra discipline, just like disciplined, so that they can follow through with these 100-year plans, 200-year plans, 300-year plans, or whatever, these intergenerational plans. That seems to be the gist of what I read, from Swally, from Fritz Springmeier, from other people who have come there. And of course they have like the mind control slaves and stuff, etc. So then we have the middle layer. Middle layer is the intelligence agencies, U.S. military, secret society, stuff like that. It's more meritocratic, but probably not as much as you might think. These are people that probably like 20 years ahead of any technology we see, and mostly technology focused upon killing and controlling people. The very most top is just straight up control. The middle layer, though, is probably mostly technology relating to killing people. Now, the technology we get on the bottom, everything we see is mostly technology that is geared towards making stuff, productive work, because they need a large producing class. We produce military, of course, conquers, or maybe sets up military bases or does research or whatever, but like they just need like a bunch of goons to like just do stuff, just work jobs, just deal with, put screws in, just like whatever, it's just goon work. It's mostly what people do, even if they don't think they're doing goon work. It's it's like, oh, they just taught this in school and then do it. They're not really doing the highest creative work, like really on the edge of science or whatever. They're learning something and they're applying it. Okay. Now, the real elite are hidden, and we're given a set of sort of like fake elite, like athletes, stars, presidents, people to admire, people that were given a set of people who are elevated above us, but sort of an artificial elevation. Many of these people are just straight up slaves. And some of them are just, are not as important as we think they are. There's a lot of them are just actors. They're just good actors, and they're told what to do, and they do it. And if anybody, if anybody gets anxious for real power, they are removed. like in the, like if any U.S. president ever got anxious for to take over the money supply, for instance, forget it. Like the money would go to the other party, and scandals would break out, and that person would be removed from power, just straight up. So, so that's the pyramid, just sort of like these three, think of it as three layers. They like the number 3. So that's sort of one way of conceptualizing it. It's probably actually much more complicated than that. The complications being that we're not a closed system. The world is not a closed system, and there's always outside forces. They probably have secret colonies on Mars. There's probably underground bases, God knows what. Maybe there is aliens out there that they're in contact with, that they, hand out with, exchanging technologies. Maybe there's time travelers come back and forth. How would I know? I wouldn't know. Yeah, I can't know. I mean, I've never seen an alien just like pop up. So, and even if I did, like, how do I know it's just not some fucking magic trick? I mean, once you have like really advanced technology, you can just play really great tricks on people, especially with the internet. So you gotta be, the very nature of reality, you gotta be like a little bit, I don't know, I guess skeptical. But you also have to open up the possibility it's real too. I mean, is evolution real? Well, maybe they decided to go with evolution and faked a bunch of evidence. How would you and I know if for hundreds of years they just sort of like, okay, we're going to fake this dinosaur and that dinosaur, and just sort of like constructed this sort of narrative of what things were actually like to fool us, essentially, or to make it look like evolution is a more tight-knit argument than it actually is. You wouldn't know. I mean, maybe there is aliens, and occasionally they come down and set loose like a bunch of genetically engineered species on the planet. Maybe humans are those. Maybe they're not. Maybe like locusts are. Maybe that's or cockroaches. Maybe the cockroaches are genetically engineered to like cause us all sorts of pain, just by like some alien that's just like ha 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 ha. Just gonna mess with these humans if we're gonna hate them. I don't know. So. True nature of reality, difficult. Maybe there's like different dimensions. Anyway, so but back to what they do with this power. So I want to talk about spiritual domination for a little bit, which is controlling the framework of knowledge within which we operate. They determine what hope is, what freedom is, what money is not, what money can buy, what money can't buy, what is acceptable, what is a taboo, what is sort of like going to come into the culture, what is not going to come into the culture. They make us fight for everything and work for everything, of course, but they'll set the agenda. They'll say, okay, it's time. Like right now, you can see like everything's like. It's almost like a switch happened and everyone's talking about rape, like all over the internet. The feminists are confusing the definition of rape, and you have all this rape porn, and so like people are going around, and it's just like it's making such a confusion about everything that it's it's they're just another way of driving men and women apart, of course, but to bring these sort of destructive things back into the culture that were not completely removed, of course, in the past, but you wouldn't go turn on a TV in the 40s and or you wouldn't be able to see like rape porn anywhere. Like anywhere. So if people raped, it was entirely like due to natural stuff in their head. Okay. And because they have this spiritual domination thing, they love the internet, they love television, they love cell phones, all these screens, because they can provide you with an image of the world as they want you to believe it is. So when you see images on the internet that are popularized, popular movies, popular YouTubers, popular this, popular that, whatever, all that is just their deal. You really have to not take it as seriously as you think. Half of it is just lies, and you'll never know, and you may never know which half unless you're very dedicated. And the game, of course, is that they say, well, you weren't forced to watch that. You weren't forced to watch. You weren't forced to become a pornography addict. You weren't forced to. You weren't forced to become a shallow consumer. You weren't forced to, get indoctrinated with this SJW stuff, or become an ISIS fanatic or an anti-ISIS fanatic or whatever. It's just, it's they say, well, we can't force it, but of course they're psychologically profiling you and pushing you in a certain direction based on how they want the world to go. So, I mean, essentially abuse. Essentially just spiritual abuse, just control. So, their goal. Eventual goal is, of course, a world state, NWO. Everyone knows that, but more than that, they want hermaphroditic cyborgs trapped in a dream world. That seems to be their goal. It's like an odd thing to want, but that's what they want. They have this if you ever go to top universities, which aren't really, there's all this queer theory stuff about sort of a mixing of gender and sexuality and gay, it's more important than you would think. The most technologically advanced species on the planet, and we're getting hung up on transgender people. What's that about? Transgender have changed. People are, they're trying to make a hermaphrodite thing, intersex. You'll see that if you ever read the literature from Harvard or wherever. You'll see them talk about intersex individuals and protecting the rights of intersex individuals, etc., etc. And if you ever go to the public health department, you'll see that yep, they are spreading all sorts of xenoestrogens all throughout the environment. The business world is doing it all the time. They're just pushing it so that our brains are fucked up, our endocrine systems are fucked up much as possible. And then when they get fucked up, you go on the internet and you find this queer theory stuff, and you're like, ah. And that's where SJWs come from. They want some sort of corrupted form of Buddhism or to prevail. A guy named Krishnamurti, and his teachings are actually pretty tight. I actually really like him in a lot of ways, but I'm sure it's sort of with Christianity, where Gnostic Christianity, where they took Christianity and they said, this is, and they squeezed whatever truth there was out of it and left us and left this sort of mass man totalitarian teaching in its place, and they'll take his teachings and do the same thing, I'm sure. So a person will not be able to they're just going to try to, this mind control stuff. But they'll probably say you're completely free or whatever, but everyone knows, won't. So, and of course, the way they're going to bring out the world state is just by causing disaster and making it look natural. They'll cause wars, they'll cause economic crashes, they'll cause environmental problems, and when everybody is just sick of it all, they'll put their world dictator. I think the Zeitgeist movement, essentially what this is just put up the, take those, that's what the Zeitgeist movement is to bring in the world state, the technocratic world state, which was going to probably eliminate 85% of us, and that's the other thing. So It's getting to 50 minutes, so I'm going to stop.